Good afternoon and welcome to the Rush this afternoon. Welcome to the Rush. My name is Randolph Critchlow. I want to thank you very much for joining the broadcast this afternoon. Those persons joining us internationally in the region and right here in Guyana. Thank you very much for being a part of the Rush on this interesting Thursday afternoon. Folks, there are lots of things to unpack. Let's do so. Let's unpack. Thank you very much, folks, for being a part of the broadcast. Let me say to you, welcome. It has been 319 days of this fraudulent administration's tenure, this installed administration's tenure, and we continue to deal with the ills and the fallout of the shambolic PPP leadership, so-called leadership. Folks, we are going to be unpacking a number of things today. Hopefully, we are going to bring some clarity to what has happened with this vaccine gate, as I'm calling it, vaccine gate, folks. We see the fallout of the issue with the overpriced, and unapproved Sputnik-V vaccine, the Russian vaccine that was procured through a middleman by the fraudulent PPP administration. We continue to see what is happening with this. The leader of the opposition had a press conference today where he dealt with it and essentially called for the government to halt using the Sputnik-V vaccine until people are given some sort of assurance that the vaccine is legit, because there are significant concerns over the legitimacy of this vaccine, given the shady nature of the persons it was procured from. So that is an interesting development that we are going to be looking at. Of course, this story broke a while now. So persons should not be surprised when these things are being called for, because we see, of course, the progression of this story. We've seen the progression of the story. And for those persons who are joining us, let me say that we will take you through the entire story. You know, we like to deal with the whole story here on the Rush. So we're going to be slowly taking you through the story because, of course, the PPP spin machine, the propaganda machine is out there. The PPP recently, only a few minutes ago, had a press conference where they tried to spin this as if to say the opposition is anti-vaccine. And they're on some anti-vaccine campaign. No, that is not the case. Let me say that right off the bat. If you listen to the leader of the opposition's press conference, you will hear that he specifically spoke to the Sputnik-V vaccine that was procured through this middleman, through the Arab Emirates sheikh, or whatever you want to call him, the sheikh, it was a shakedown. We don't know what it was. This secret arrangement that was made, and we saw it happening in Ghana, we saw it happening in Pakistan, through the sheikh to buy overpriced vaccines and distributed vaccines, of course, that were not approved by the WHO. And of course, that was overpriced. Guyana did the same thing. And there are significant concerns globally about the Sputnik vaccine. So the leader of the opposition zeroing in on specifically the Sputnik-V vaccine. Of course, this is an opportunity for the PPP and the propaganda machine to say that the opposition is anti-vaccine, but we're going to deal with that. The leader of the opposition also saying AstraZeneca and the Sinopharm vaccine that we also have available in Guyana. Nothing is wrong with those. Those have been approved by WHO, and questioning why is it that the PPP, the fraudulent PPP government, would not seek to purchase more of those vaccines, and why the rush to buy these overpriced vaccines from this middleman that of course was not approved by WHO. So we have two other WHO approved vaccines in the country, which is the Sinopharm and the AstraZeneca Oxford. So we're going to deal with all of that this afternoon. But good afternoon to you folks. Good afternoon to you. We're also going to be dealing with the road towards dictatorship, the road to dictatorship that we seem to be on. We see the PVP, breaking up and suspending constitutional bodies like the Police Service Commission. Of course, we see what is happening in Parliament there with the Public Accounts Commission. So these are all, as we term them, the guardrails of democracy being broken down and dismantled by this PVP government. We're going to deal with that. And this afternoon, we are going, since we weren't on yesterday, we want to apologize to our viewers who tuned in and we didn't get the rush yesterday. We are going to be giving you an opportunity to have your say in our brand new segment, Have Your Say, a little later down in the program. So store the number 6187321, 6187321. You can store, let me give you the number right off the bat. By the end of the show, you'll be giving us a call. We do not call us now because we wouldn't answer you. We're dealing with the substantive part of the show. So we'll deal with that a little later down. But folks, let me know where you're joining us from. Let me know where you're joining us from this afternoon. As we normally do on the Rush, give you your show. Due respect for tuning in and being a part of the show. Give us a little shout out. Let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon. Remember, you can share the live stream. Share the live stream. Let your friends and family know that we're about to unpack some credible and valid information here on The Rush this afternoon. If you're joining us from YouTube, thank you very much. Remember to hit that subscribe button and hit the like button. Leave a comment. Let us know how you're enjoying the program. Let us know your thoughts, because we also follow the comments to know what you guys are thinking. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you very much. Remember to like the page and share the live stream. Mr. Andrews joining us from South Roosevelt Park. Thank you very much. Lyndon is in the house. Brooklyn is in the house. Trinidad and Tobago joining from Canada. Thank you very much, folks. Remember, once you tell us where you're joining us from, don't be afraid to share the live stream. Do not be afraid to share the live stream. We have some important information to start unpacking today. Vaccine Gate, of course, we're going to be talking about all that has happened today, all the new information that we got about the Guyana and the procurement of this overpriced, unapproved vaccine. Liberty Avenue is in the house. Atlanta. Oh, Atlanta, y'all behaving bad last night, man. Y'all behaving bad. Y'all got the friends in Philadelphia scared, heading back to Atlanta there for game 6. Of course, we're talking NBA. For those persons who are normally tuned to the show, you know I like to make my NBA references. Brooklyn is in the house. Right, Diamond, those persons in Diamond, thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. Long Island is in the house. Right, watching from Bagotstown. Thank you very much. Port Kaituma. Stubby, thank you very much. All the way in Port Kaituma. Thank you very much. Jamaica Queens in the house. Anderson from Jamaica Queens. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. Florida is in the house. Florida in the house. Looks like Pittsburgh is in the house also. Folks, Providence, thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. Remember, share the live stream, folks. Share the live stream as I share a few other places before we get into the true unpacking this afternoon. Before we get into that, let me say welcome to our folks over in Antigua. Who are always tuned in. I know I have some loyal viewers over there in Antigua. UK is in the house. Diamond is in the house. House Street in the house. Thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. Firish Village. We visited region number 6 last weekend. Firish, thank you very much for tuning in. Folks, we're going to be getting to that magic number in a bit. So you help us to get to that magic number so we can start the unpacking. We're going to be joined also by our political correspondent, Miss Nicole Telford, in just a bit as we talk about what has happened today, as we break down the entire story. You know, this is it. I like to make this thing as simple as possible, because when you tune in to NCN, or you tune in to Newsroom, or Guyana Times TV, which is what, Channel 28, Evening News, you hear all sort of spin. You hear all sort of twist up information about what really occurred during the day. And of course, they are going to take the leader of the opposition's statements and try to make themselves look as good as possible. And this is a very ticklish matter, because we're dealing with people's health. We're dealing with persons' lives. Health and safety issues are very, very ticklish. And it must not be said that the opposition is telling persons not to take vaccines. Clearly, there was a number of PSAs put out by the opposition, including the leader of the opposition, who took the same vaccine that he now has concerns with. So he took the vaccines before all of these new revelations were unearthed. So we are now in a position where new information has been brought forward, and the leader of the opposition has asked, you know what, in light of this information, in light of the valid concerns that people may have about the safety of this vaccine, and about the shady nature of the persons you procured these vaccines from, that we take a little halt on using those specific vaccines, and until we get enough information that the public can feel secure that these vaccines, which of course are not WHO approved as yet. So that's a major concern right away. Frank Anthony said in the parliament that he made it clear that he made it public that the vaccines were not WHO approved. Whether that is true, it's to be seen, right? Whether that is true, we still have to see that. But again, the major thrust of what played out today is that the leader of the opposition has decided, you know what, let us take stock here. Given all the new information that we have, there are valid concerns that need to be addressed about this particular vaccine. He didn't say didn't talk directly to the people. He spoke to the government, who has the responsibility for the health and safety of the people. AstraZeneca, which we procured from the COVAX facility, Sinopharm, which is readily available from the Chinese, both have been approved by WHO. But there seemed to be a particular rush, no pun intended, a particular rush to sign this agreement with the people from UAE through this middleman who has a shady past and is convicted in Norway, or at least charged for fraud in Norway, through that shady character to pay double the amount for this unapproved vaccine. So we're going to deal with that, folks. We are going to deal with that, as we say. Thank you very much to those persons who are tuned in, and ask them, of course, to share the live stream. Share the live stream. Folks, we're getting into it. We're getting into program time right now. We're getting right into program time. So we hope that you are sharing the live stream, and we are going to be unpacking very quickly. We're going to go from the beginning, because I want persons to understand clearly what has transpired. Right. Folks, this is what we're dealing with. We're going to go into the major news. So we all are aware. We all are aware as to what is happening. Great. So let's deal with it, folks. Vaccine gate. Sputnik-V vaccine. What happened really? Let's start from the beginning. Let us start from the beginning, folks. Right? Let us start from the beginning because we want persons to understand clearly. Let's break it down. Now, and let's go back to this story that was broken by the Norwegian newspaper. Let's go back to this story that was broken by the Norwegian newspaper, and let's deal with it there. And then we'll come home to Guyana and show you how it all connects, how all of the dots connect very seamlessly into this vaccine gate, right? So we have here, folks, let's go back to this story, and then because we need to go back to this story to understand where we are, why we're here right now with this particular issue. We saw in November that the Sheikh, and let's go down in the story because we know this happened in Nigeria also, but we're going to go down in the story and start from Guyana's involvement in this reportedly global or international scandal for overpriced, unapproved vaccines. Let's deal with Guyana's involvement here. Let's stop right here for those persons who did not know that on the 19th of November last year, right, Sheikh Al Maktoum arrived in Guyana. Sheikh Al Maktoum arrived in Guyana, and at that point in time, the Guyanese public was not aware as to the reason or the purpose for this visit by Sheikh Al Maktoum. We did not know why he was here. We now realize that the Sheikh was here to sign a secret agreement for sale of overpriced, unapproved vaccines that they somehow would have procured from Russia, the Sputnik-V vaccine. This is, and remember, Sputnik-V is at the center of this vaccine gate. Not the other vaccines that were WHO approved, the Sputnik-V vaccine. So on the 19th of November, 2020, we saw the arrival of the Sheikh. Right. Later on, there was a press conference. Right? And let me take this here, where the fraudulent vice president was asked whether he knew the company. And this specific question is important, whether he knew the company that this Sputnik-V was being procured from, this middleman that you're now paying double the cost for the vaccine. Mind you, I want you to understand this, Guyana, that whilst we were paying double the cost for this vaccine, it is now being revealed that Sinopharm vaccine from China, who we have very good relations with, the Sinopharm vaccine was readily available in China at a much cheaper cost. I want you to put that into the mix and understand that while we were signing this agreement with the Sheikh, China had Sinopharm vaccine available, which was at a much cheaper cost and was WHO approved. So we had the vaccine, but the stunning part of it is that when asked about who these people are that we are buying these vaccines from, the fraudulent vice president said, I do not know the exact name of the company, but I know they supplied Africa and some other countries. Now, the Minister of Health today spoke about reckless. If this is not reckless, then what is? Exhibit A. The vice president said he doesn't know the name of the company that the vaccines are coming from. It was then revealed, of course, through this same article that Omar Farouk Zahouk, seen here accompanying Al Maktoum, who is the sheikh, was an integral part of this whole deal. He's there in the sweatsuit at the back. If you can see him right now. See him coming out of the plane behind the sheikh. Look. And he's standing behind here in a sweatsuit. This man was integral to the whole deal. This is a man who is convicted of fraud in Norway. So the vice president didn't know the company that these people set up to sell this overpriced vaccine. He didn't know the name of the company. But we buying 400,000 doses, $1 billion in a vaccine. We're giving it to these people. Note, at this point in time, the vaccine isn't approved. In November, this vaccine still isn't approved. But we readily gave these people who the vice president said, he don't know the name of the people. He know the name of the company. But you are giving, imagine this, you're giving $1 billion for 400,000 doses of this vaccine to a company that you don't know the name. After all of this, after all these new revelations that this man has been involved in fraud, you can understand why it is that persons are now skeptical, and the leader of the opposition has said we need information on this particular batch of vaccine that came through this middleman at an overpriced cost. Of course, we know it's unapproved. Overpriced and unapproved vaccine that came through this middleman who we know has problems with the law. And the vice president who said, I don't know the name of the company. I didn't say that. The vice president said it right here. He said, I don't know. I do not know the exact name of the company, but I know they supplied Africa. Of course, they supplied Africa because this is what they have been doing around the world. They've been going to these poor countries who are finding it difficult to find vaccines and selling the unapproved Sputnik vaccines at an overpriced cost, inflated cost, double the amount. So that's where we are. So when this story broke, we then, of course, we didn't hear anything from the PBP really. Probably trying to figure out how to respond to this. But luckily there was Parliament. And in Parliament, the opposition MPs grilled the Minister of Health. They grilled the Minister of Health about who these people are. And the Minister of Health said that he doesn't know, I don't know who you're talking about. This is not Al Maktoum, it's the man at the company Al Maktoum. The minister said he doesn't know this man who was integral in setting up these companies, this particular company that we bought these vaccines through, the middle company, so to speak. It was in Parliament when we found out that the vaccines, we paid double the amount for it. Remember, since November of last year, this deal was signed, early days of the PVP. Sheikh Al Maktoum came in and we signed this deal. It was a few days ago in Parliament. Until then, the public was made aware that we were paying double for this vaccine. There you go. That's the transparency that we're dealing with in here. And that's how transparent and open the PVP government is. That's their transparency. When the money was already spent, they came to Parliament to say, well, you know what? We paid double for this vaccine. Folks, the story continues. it continues. Because today, we had a press conference by the leader of the opposition, and he effectively said, look, until we get all of the information here, we should take a little halt on this vaccine. Given all the revelations, and I want to add some more information to you folks, because again, right, I want to add some things here. And folks, we're going to be joined by former Minister Annette Ferguson in just a bit, because we know she normally has her show, but we're going to be joined by her in just a bit to help add to this conversation, and then we lead over into her show. But folks, let me add some more information here for you, because it gets interesting. It gets really interesting. Let me add some more information for you here. Persons may know that there are concerns globally about this Sputnik-V vaccines. Right? I'll be back in. Let me just take a quick break, folks, and I'll talk to you about the concerns globally about the Sputnik vaccine. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Right? And we'll talk to you about the Sputnik-V vaccines and the concerns. 30-second break. Right. Right, so we're here, folks, and we are back. Now, again, we're talking about the fallout from this vaccine gate. Let me share with you some information about this Sputnik-V vaccine. Let me just share a bit of information with you folks. For those persons who do not know, just a bit of inside, not the inside information, but information about this Sputnik-V that may not have been shared with you. Right? Now, the Russians have missed many deadlines to submit to the EU evidence and data that they will use to properly review and green light the approval of this vaccine. Right? The other issue here is that many experts around the world in the field, credible places such as LSHTM and other universities, have said that the data provided by the Russians that seem to have rushed their no pun intended again, rushed their process is a bit spotty, and there is no wonder why this vaccine has not yet been given the green light by the WHO. But there is more, folks, and I want us to get the whole story and understand why the leader of the opposition would have come to the position that we need to get more information before we continue vaccinating our people with this particular vaccine. Right? At the press conference today, note this. When asked by reporters why it is that Guyana continued or is willfully buying overpriced Sputnik vaccine from a middleman when there was a cheaper option of the Sinopharm directly from the manufacturer in China, he couldn't answer. There was no answer for it. There was no answer for that. Right? Folks, this is what is happening. the source from which the PPP bought the vaccine, only became known on Monday in Parliament when Frank Anthony reluctantly disclosed after being questioned by the opposition. One, this is the breakdown. This is the breakdown. Listen to it, you know. We only knew the source on Monday. Two, the investigative report by the Norwegian newspaper Verdensgang VG about where Sheikh Al Maktoum is sourcing his vaccines. And he's getting it from, of course, this Norwegian convict, Morten Hansen, right? Came to our attention, Guyana's attention, this week after the publication was made on June the 3rd. All along, the PPP made the public believe that the vaccines were being sourced directly from Russia. Again, when Jagdi was asked, when somebody through the investigative reporting asked about the company, Jagdi said, I don't know the people. And the PPP never disclosed that they bought it from this middleman up until then when he was asked this question. 4, they have kept as a secret until Monday that they overpaid by 600 million, more than 130% above the world market price. That was a secret to Guyanese. We didn't know that. I want you to get the whole story here. At the time that the leader of the opposition, Mr. Harman, and MPs were vaccinated, the PPP gave the impression that they sourced this vaccine directly from Russia. We didn't know it came from the Sheikh. We didn't know that this Norwegian man who is essentially a criminal in Norway was involved in this deal. There was no idea. Number 6, the Sheikh's contact, Morten Hansen and Umar Farouk Zahur, was not known until this week following the VG report and the media report in Ghana. So that is what we have been subjected to. So when you hear the leader of the opposition saying, hold the brakes a little bit, hold the brakes a little bit, it is out of concern. It is out of concern for the safety. It is out of concern that we are getting the right vaccine here. It's out of concern that we are dealing with criminals. It's out of concern that we are giving our people a vaccine that has not been approved by WHO. So you cannot blame the leader of the opposition for saying, hold the brakes on that particular batch of vaccine that you got from this particular set of people at this fancy price. These people that seem to be in it for the profit. You cannot blame the leader of the opposition for taking that position. It is out of concern for people's safety. So the PPP, of course, will go on their propaganda campaign now and say that the leader of the opposition is anti-vaccine. The leader of the opposition is anti-corruption. Because when you move away the veil, it is a long trail of corruption. You insist on buying this overpriced, unapproved vaccine from some middleman when you won very early before this happened. We knew that vaccines were available elsewhere. We knew that China had vaccines. We knew that our relationship with COVAX would have gotten us some AstraZeneca also. persons may not understand that Sputnik-V is not the only vaccine available on the market. Sputnik-V is not the only vaccine available on the market. And that is the key point here, folks. That is the key point. That this Sputnik-V wasn't the only vaccine available on the market. And still isn't the only vaccine available on the market. I don't think that people understand the scale of this corruption. But I want to share with you some of the vaccines available on the market right now. Hope you can see the screen. Let me make it a little bigger. And I want you to see where in the chain, or where in the process, their approval process they are. Where they're right now in terms of all of the vaccines. Right? If I can make this a little bigger for you. Right. Folks, there are a number of vaccines on the market. Right? And this chart tells you or shows you how far they are along with it in terms of their approval. AstraZeneca. We see Moderna in the mix there. We're up to 8. Sinovac. And this is where number 9, if you look at number 9, we see Sputnik-V. Not one tick yet. Nowhere there do you see a tick. No approval as yet. It says additional information submitted. Several meetings have been continued to be held. CMC data has started. Additional data. Follow-up inspection and observation. No approval as yet. Anticipated date will be set once all the data submitted and follow-up of inspection observation completed. This is, of course, the Sputnik-V. But I want to give you an idea of the amount of vaccines. We have 22 different vaccines on the world scene right now. 22. 22 different vaccines. But we seem stuck on this overpriced one that hasn't been approved from this middleman. Folks, I want to get a different perspective on this, and I'm going to be inviting our political correspondent, Ms. Nicole Telford, to join us. And we're going to be in the limited time we have on the program today, because this is quite a lot. This is quite a lot. Also, I want to give you an opportunity to have your say at the end of the program. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? What are your thoughts, Guyana? What are your thoughts? How do you feel? Folks, I will get your say in just a moment. I'm reading some of your comments right now. Of course, persons are talking about the fact that the Trinidadian Prime Minister has decided he is not going to give his people the unapproved vaccines. But joining me right now to continue this conversation is our political correspondent, Ms. Nicole Telford. Nicole, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Randy, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Right. Thank you very much for joining the show today. Nicole, we're talking about, we're in Vaccine Gate, as I'm calling it. We saw the press conference by the leader of the opposition today, and as I said on my program, on the program earlier, it is out of an abundance of concern for the health and safety of Guyanese, given all the information that we would have acquired about the circumstances surrounding the procurement of this Sputnik-V vaccine and the people and the companies involved, the shady nature, that the leader of the opposition has now said, you know what, let's hold the brakes a little bit until we get valid and credible information about this vaccine. Your thoughts, Nicole?
He's absolutely correct, and he spoke directly to the government of Guyana installed, albeit,
Yeah.
on getting all of the questions answered, where it came from, how they procured it, all those hidden questions that weren't answered.
Yeah.
The questions that came about where Frank Anthony said he don't know and they don't know. All of those questions. Also, I'd like to add, what type of vaccine did Jadio and Irafanali got?
Mm. Mm.
Because um, even though they advertised that they're taking the COVID-19 vaccine, they never indicated what type of vaccine they took.
Yeah.
Only Sputnik. Frank took Sputnik. So those are questions that I would like answered. Also, if you look at the vaccines given out in Linden, I recently got a photograph. It is in a different vial to that is being advertised as the original Sputnik-V vaccine. And by the way, Russia is also warning people that they got fake Sputnik vaccine,
Yeah.
and it is being circulated on social media. All of the different types of fake vaccine as against the original vaccine. That is just two of the things that I would like to highlight.
Yeah.
Also, the opposition leader said, look, I took the vaccine, right? This tells you the genuine concern he has for the Guyanese populace because of the lies that were told by the installed administration to the Guyanese people. They met publicly but covertly signed and did deals to acquire vaccines without telling the Guyanese public where, when, what, how, and who of this vaccine. And then they've tried to foster it on people so that persons can take it well on risk. They're being warned that, look, there is contention by the international WHO has not approved this vaccine. This vaccine was not approved. It's not even being allowed to enter Trinidad and Tobago, and even Barbados is rejecting travelers who have taken the Sputnik-V vaccine, and they're terming them, they're not recognizing them as vaccinated. So those are some of the things that persons should take into consideration. Europe recently said they know when they're going to prove it, if it can be September or December or whenever. So those are some of the things that persons should pay attention to.
Yeah. As we talk, Nicole, I'm reading an article. I'm looking at an article right now that says here Mexico sees fake Sputnik vaccines bound for Honduras. This was what the leader of the opposition alluded to when he spoke at this press conference today. Let me see if I can share the article here. Nicole, and we're going to be joined just now by Chief Whip Christopher Jones about the vaccines. But the article here says, look, there are vaccines that were seized bearing the name Sputnik. And this must be concerning and alarming given the shady nature, the shady background. And I heard Frank Anthony saying in his press conference today, Nicole, and I want to push back on this. Right? Push back on this, and this is from ABC News. I want to push back on what Frank Anthony said in his press conference, because he said that, look, the leader of the opposition is saying that the vaccine is fake. The leader of the opposition never said that the vaccine, the Sputnik vaccines that we have, are fake. What he said is that we have to be assured given all the information about the shady nature of the people you're buying them from at an overpriced, overpriced, albeit that we are getting what we are supposed to get. We are getting the right thing, because in the public domain are cases, of course, of fake Sputnik vaccines. So if we are putting two and two together, there are fake Sputnik vaccines going around out there. We now, they've now been revealed that the people that you bought these things for are shady character. How are you assuring us that we are getting the right thing? And that is what the leader of the opposition said. He never said that the batches that we have are fake. So again, Frank Anthony and his propaganda, the PPP. Your thoughts on that, Nicole?
Yes, indeed, Randy. They are twisting the information coming out of the opposition leader's press conference.
Yeah.
He indicated, just like you said, that he spoke to the government to find out those questions: where, when, why, what, who.
Yes.
He also added that he's not, when asked by Dennis Chabral about some miscreant behavior, he said, listen, not here to kill Sputnik.
Yes.
I'm here to protect the Guyanese from being killed by Sputnik.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And he said that to indicate to them, unless they even added, unless he's requiring them to put a hold on it until they give the specifics on the vaccines that they have had. Look, the government installed, just released bottles of the vaccines that they're using, and it does not compare that to that which is being used in Linden, right? Because I got pictures of the vaccine bottles that are being used in Linden.
Yeah.
And it didn't compare to that. So this is what we are questioning. We're not saying that they're incorrect. All they have to say is what type of vaccine, how many different bottles the vaccine coming in, or what it looks like, and that is what we want to know.
Yeah.
You understand? And as and even the opposition leader said, look, there's AstraZeneca,
Yeah,
and the other one
Sinopharm.
from China, that yes, Sinopharm, that is approved by the World Health Organization. It's urgent persons. He even said it in his press conference. He's urgent persons to take it.
Yeah.
So he's not saying people shouldn't take those vaccines.
Yeah. Nicole, we are now joined by Chief Whip Christopher Jones on the line. Christopher, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Randy. Good afternoon, Nicola.
Right. Now, happy to have you join the conversation here, Chris. I want to invite you to give your general thoughts on what we saw today play out with this vaccine gate.
Yeah. All right. Randy, I want to echo the sentiments like Nicola said in terms of the leader of the opposition and the information that he put forward today at his press conference.
Yeah.
And most genuine concern for the Guyanese people. And of course, he leads. The leader of the opposition has taken both doses of the Sputnik-V vaccine. And I know several of my colleagues, APNU, AFC members of parliament, has also taken both doses of the Sputnik vaccine. So this is not plain politics. This is concern. Because at the end of the day, the leader of the opposition can't withdraw the vaccine from his veins. Similarly, the members of parliament, and similarly, those thousands of Guyanese across the length and breadth of Guyana that has already taken the vaccine.
Yes.
The concerns are genuine, and all Guyanese, irrespective of your political persuasion, should be concerned.
Yeah.
And how is only now you're talking about this? How is only now you know about this? And you made the point earlier, Randy.
Yeah.
The parliament on Monday, and I have to remind your viewers that we convened parliament 98 days after the last sitting, which was March the 4th. And I am on record. I wrote to the International Parliamentary Union. I wrote to the Commonwealth Parliament Association. I wrote to Parl Americas. And I think just yesterday we issued a response that I've gotten from them.
Yes.
Complaining to them that the Parliament of Guyana has not met for 98 days.
Yes.
And the APNU AFC MPs had a total of 491 questions that were submitted to the ministers.
Wow.
And those questions were sent to the Minister of Health, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Local Government, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Home Affairs, just to name a few.
Yeah.
98 days. And people have to know this, that this how Parliament is structured is that the answer to those questions will come at the convening of the Parliament, unless it's a question for written response.
Yes.
So for 98 days, those questions were submitted by the APNU AFC, and because the people could not convene the Parliament for 98 days, you couldn't have any answers to those questions. As well, you didn't have an opportunity to have any follow-up questions to those that you submitted.
Yes.
As well, even in the sitting that we had on Monday, the point was made by the leader of the opposition and by Dr. Karen Cummins, opposition shadow minister of health, that the fact that the APNU AFC, the People's Progressive Party Civic, refused to allow a representative from the APNU AFC to sit on the National Task Force. And we've been crying this since last year, because to have a representative sitting on the National Task Force, it allows that person to ask these very questions that we were able to ask only on Monday after 98 days of the Parliament.
Yeah.
And those questions could have been where these vaccines came from. What is your source? How is your purchase? What is the price you pay for them, and so forth? We had no opportunity because to date, as we sit, we do not have a representative on the National Task Force to deal with these things, to ask these questions, to get the answer. 98 days the PPP did not convene Parliament, and therefore we had no opportunity to ask those questions. And that is why you saw on Monday, as you rightfully said, the MPs had an opportunity to grill Frank Anthony. And you know, when you grill somebody, sometimes they speak things that they didn't plan to talk, they talk out the story. So it is when the question was asked, he volunteered the answers. And that is why we are here now. Now we know that this sheik, when we thought this person just coming on a tour and visiting beautiful Guyana and the block off all the streets from the airport right down and all of that, we didn't know the man comes to sell vaccine.
Yep.
You understand me?
That's a meat of the problem. It was
exactly
a secret deal made, and there was no sort of public.
Randy and Chris.
Go ahead, Nicole.
That's
Randy and Chris.
Yes, Nicole.
I just sent through some images. The images are the vaccine vials being given in Linden, the red bottle that is flagged on the world market as fake. I don't know if that's it, but if you look at those images and the images that were sent out by government as their vaccine, everything has been sent to you in your WhatsApp. Check it out.
I'm looking at them, Nicole. But as we talk about, as we get that together, Chris, thank you, Nicole, for that. Chris, the secretive nature in which this thing was procured. And we see similarities in Ghana. The Ghanaian people are saying, look, when we are dealing with the AIDS crisis and other vaccines and other medical issues, these things normally come to Parliament. Hence, we know we are in an emergency, but it normally came through Parliament, so at least the public knows where we're getting it from, who we're buying it from, how much we're paying for it. None of that, of course, is the same case in Guyana.
And you know, Randy, I mean, as I tell people, September of this year will mark 23 years since I've been active in politics.
Yeah.
And all my 23 years, this is the nature of the PPP. Secretive, shady deals, kickbacks, and so forth. That is what they're known for. and they play politics with everything, including the health and well-being of the Guyanese people. This is nothing new. This is the PPP. This is the nature of the beast. This is how they operate all the time.
Yeah.
If they know that they could get a kickback from somebody turning up in a plane and selling drugs, and they stick it in the arms of every guy, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. So it is quite sad. Nicole, if you're still on the line, I know we're talking about these vaccines and the genuine concern. I know you're coming from, let's say, a layman's perspective. The people on the ground are talking about it. People are concerned, and people are highlighting the similarities in the vaccines that we are seeing on the world market that are deemed fake. And the onus is on the government. The onus is not on the leader of the opposition to prove that this thing is legit. You are the people who...
The people are talking and they're sending the pictures of the vials that they're getting. They're talking.
Right.
And they're sending us the pictures of the vials they're getting. So people are indeed concerned given the nature of this vaccine gate. Sputnik gate or vaccine Sputnik-V gate.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, Randy, I prefer to err on the side of caution.
Right.
I know for certain, and I can say that I can speak without fear of contradiction on behalf of the leader of the opposition, that if tomorrow it is proven that the vaccines, all of the vaccines, including the one that came on the aircraft with the sheik or whatever the case be, that it is proven to be the genuine Russian Sputnik-V vaccine, he wouldn't have an issue.
No.
He preferred to err on the side of caution.
I know. Right. I know none
know?
of you will have an issue.
Because as I said before too, he has the vaccines in his arms.
Right.
You understand me? So he himself would be worried. Our members of parliament who took the vaccine would be worried. Now, Nicola said earlier that she wants to know whether or not the PPP members took the same Sputnik-V or the AstraZeneca. The information we got long before is that neither of the two vaccines the PPP members took. That is either the Moderna or Pfizer vaccine that they were able to acquire because they are government separate and apart, and they gotten those. You understand me?
Yeah. Chris, and let me say this here. It is the opposition's job to
highlight, expose
these things and keep the government in check. And people are running around with this idea that the opposition saying X, Y, and Z of anti-vaccine. No, it is the government's position to ensure that you engender some sort of what's the word? Trust from the Guyanese people. We must trust that what you are giving us is legit. And if you're going to, if after the report from the newspapers, after we know that these people are shady, after there are all these concerns about the vaccine, your job is not to jump out there and say XYZ, the opposition leader, wrong for saying this. Your job is to show the Guyanese people that what you're giving them is safe.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, they talk about vaccine hesitancy. The reality, Randy, they are the largest percentage of the Guyanese population do not trust the People's Progressive Party Civic.
And that is the reality.
Issue. You understand me? And then worse over, when it comes to something that you are putting in your body that you cannot take out after. And then coupled with what has been exposed in the parliament by Frank Anthony himself, that they purchased these vaccines double or 130 times the cost of what you could have acquired from the original source, and they got it from a shady character that is wanted by authorities in a country.
Yes.
There's a major investigation, and I think I posted the article yesterday or the day before on my page,
Yes.
of which Guyana is named as one of the countries in which the sheik has been flying around selling Sputnik-V vaccines.
Yes, we share that, and I can share that article again. This is the article from the VG newspaper there in Norway that broke this story. And
Exactly.
I'm saying, after all of these concerns, you don't seem to care that this is going to create more hesitancy. But
Exactly.
instead of saying, look, we are going to be forthcoming with all the information about this vaccine and who we got it from. No, you're saying you're now going to play politics. Say, look, the opposition with the lives of the Guyanese people are on the opposition shoulder. No,
Yeah.
you are responsible for giving people this vaccine. Your job is to ensure that you let them know that it's safe.
That's
Your
right.
job is to give us all of the information, all of the details as to the vaccine, who we get from, and as the opposition leader said, let us know the information, because I
That's
took
right.
this vaccine too. I want to know that you got it from the correct means and from the correct people. And that is the
Exactly.
meat of the issue. That is the meat of the issue. They are responsible for people's health and they're playing games.
Yeah, yeah. And you see, I want to caution members of the public in terms of social media.
Yeah.
As you know, the People's Progressive Party Civic is good in the art of propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And they have individuals, they have their trolls that putting up these memes all over Facebook.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are getting caught up with it. They see it as being a joke and they laugh and so forth.
Yeah.
I caution them that this is the same PPP that we know.
Yeah.
In all of the shady deals, and you know it, the PPP. Now, in the parliament, the minister was allowed or proud to talk about the amount of vaccines or persons who have been vaccinated in Guyana and comparing that with the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw that prompted the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to make the point clear that the reason why Guyana could boast about the most amount of vaccines being in the country is because Guyana took vaccines that were not WHO approved.
Yes.
You understand me? That as a result of Frank Anthony's statement in the parliament, that prompted the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to come and put that out there.
Yeah.
And even Dr. Richard Van West Charles and Dr. Karen Cummins on a program I had on CNS Channel 6 about a month ago. Dr. Van West Charles and Dr. Karen Cummins was making the point that the Sputnik vaccine has not yet been approved by the WHO.
Yeah.
And all of this boasting that the PPP is doing, that Guyana has the most amount of vaccines and all of that, that is what prompted the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to come and set the record straight.
Yeah.
And the reason why Guyana has so much vaccines in the country, because they took vaccines that have not been approved by the World Health Organization. That is the fact.
Yeah.
The factors are as well too. Trinidad and Tobago does not use Sputnik vaccine because it has not been approved by the WHO.
Yeah.
Barbados does not use Sputnik vaccine because it's not approved by the WHO. And in fact, if you enter or try to enter Barbados, state that you have fully vaccinated with the Sputnik vaccine, you are being denied to enter. Yeah. That is the fact. That is a fact. And as again, I want to end how I started, Randy, for the benefit of your viewers, that to date, the APNU AFC does not have a representative on the National Task Force. Therefore, information about vaccines, their sources, the cost, and so forth, those information we are not privileged to, or we are not privy to.
Yes.
And even on Monday in the Parliament, the leader of the opposition and Dr. Karen Cummins reiterated that point, that the APNU AFC does not have a representative on the task force. And if the PPP was serious about bringing an end to vaccine hesitancy, they will ensure that the opposition has a representative or representatives
Yeah.
on the national task force so they can ask the salient questions that are needed. They can get the answer. And as an opposition, we too can provide the information to the Guyanese populace to confirm that yes, these vaccines came from a source, a credible source. This was the price they paid. This is the reason why we paid this price. We have no information, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
Just like how John Public will open the newspapers, or you will go on Facebook and you will see that Guyana received 2,000 vaccine, and the DPI or NCN says that it come from wherever. That is the same information we have. We have no way of confirming whether or not that is so unless we do our own investigations.
Yeah.
As well, too, as I mentioned, when the parliament met last week, Thursday, the parliament met after 98 days.
Yeah.
And questions from the opposition total 491 questions that were submitted. And outside of those questions that would have been received by written reply, the only time we would have gotten answers to those questions is when the parliament met last week, Thursday, 98 days after. And I asked persons, if you have the time, you could go to the parliament's website. You could look at the sitting of the parliament last week, Thursday, and you will see questions after question being posed by the minister, because that is when the questions are asked, and that is when you actually get the answers 98 days after.
Yeah.
Monday, when the parliament met, wow, we had the opposition. We had the opportunity to pose questions to Frank Anthony about these vaccines. And all that has been revealed, it came out on Monday. Yeah. That's when we notice it.
Christopher Jones, MP, just stand by. Folks, if you're now joining us, we're unpacking Vaccine Gate, the Sputnik-V overpriced, unapproved vaccines that were procured by the fraudulent PPP government. We have on the line the Chief Whip in Parliament, Christopher Jones, on the opposition side, and our political correspondent, Ms. Nicole Telford. We also have standing by for her program, former Minister Annette Ferguson, who I want to bring in now just to get her comments on this. And before we go back to our two persons on the line to wrap up today, let us welcome former Minister Ferguson and current MP on the opposition side, Ms. Annette Ferguson. Good evening. Just let you know, I have your colleague, your MP and Chief Whip Christopher Jones on the line, and we also have our political correspondent, Ms. Nicole Telford, on the line. And we're unpacking the vaccine gate. I know you would have been aware of what has unfolded today with the leader of the opposition saying, look, we need to take pump the brakes a little bit until we have all the information given the revelations of the last few days. Your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, Randy, a pleasant evening to you, and I'm grateful for you to have me on your program. A pleasant evening to Chris and also Nicole. My thoughts on the recent revelations concerning the Sputnik vaccine is very troubling and worrying. Reason being is that I have taken both of my doses of the Sputnik vaccine.
I know you are very vocal in encouraging persons to take the vaccine. So this must be concerning given all the information coming out now.
So I don't know whether I had the fake one injected in me, or if it was the injection from the first set that they were able to procure. So like many other Guyanese who would have taken the Sputnik vaccine, and now to hear what really transpired in the purchases of these vaccines, people, I could imagine people, must be getting delusional, people must be going mad at the moment. And you see, this is the point that I also want to make this point. as national leaders, we ought to be responsible. We ought to be honest in everything that we do because we are entrusted as leaders to protect the lives of our citizens.
Mhm.
And when you can go to this extent of procuring this drugs, which is this vaccine, which is not even WHO or PAHO approved as yet, and you did not sensitize, fully sensitize and educate your nation. You understand me? I can only describe you as a deceptor, as wicked, and you know me as corrupt. I don't know what else name I can describe you
Yeah.
as, and those are the type of descriptions we have to label the PPP with. They
Just
never come clean with anything.
to jump in here quickly, can give our viewers some more information. Frank Anthony in the parliament did say that he said it publicly that the vaccines were not WHO approved. We hear the Russia still trying to get that piece of videotape because we want to know when it was said publicly to the Guyanese nation that look, this thing was not WHO approved. Because there are some serious legal implications there if that was not done and persons were taking these vaccines, of course, not knowing that they were not WHO approved. Additionally, the issue of the pricing was something to be concerned about. Why is it that of course, you have Sinopharm vaccine available at cheaper cost? And when asked today about that, he could not answer. He maintained that look, they were, and Jack Dio had said, look, we can pay double even because we're trying to save our people. That's a fair moral argument. We understand that the price shouldn't be an issue, but on matters like this, when there are other vaccines available at a cheaper cost, which now we know are WHO approved, then this is a matter for a consultation. You can't just take it on yourself to go and buy these expensive unapproved vaccines and then defend it because you're saying it's an emergency. Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead, go ahead.
you see, I do agree with you, Randy. And to further add, that is why you had the low percentage fake in many of the regions, more so Linden, region number 10. Even in the communities during our outreaches in the various communities just last weekend, we were in region number 6. I was in the community of Sanford there in region number 6. And when you ask the people, both myself and Honorable Catherine Hughes, when we asked the folks whether they had their jobs, the people told you frankly, they haven't taken it because, the government, they don't trust the PPP. I heard Christopher alluded to that earlier,
Mhm.
is that they don't trust the PPP, number one. Two is that they don't think that the government would have done enough sensitization on this whole vaccination. It's not only you trying to get your populace vaccinated. I mean, COVID was revealed in 2019, and for vaccines to be made in probably less than 2 years, persons must become concerned. How can you create a vaccine in less than 2 years and now
Yeah.
trying to get people vaccinated without providing them the necessary information as it relates to the feelings, what they need to do after taking these vaccines, what are the likely effects and all manner of things. I don't
Mr.
think
Ferguson,
much has been done.
right. Let me just interrupt here because I know we are a little pressed for time. You have to get into your show.
Yeah.
And I want to add also that the leader of the opposition did not make any mention about AstraZeneca or the Sinopharm. Of course, those are WHO approved. It was
Exactly.
specific to this particular batch of Sputnik
Mm-hmm.
vaccine that we
Mm-hmm.
got from these shady middlemen. Just to be
Mm-hmm.
specific for our viewers out there. As we say this, we're still joined by our political correspondent Nicole Telford and Christopher Jones, the MP and Chief Whip. I'll give Nicole her opportunity to give her last word. One more thing, Nicole, to you, and then I'll over to Chief Whip, and then we'll hand over to Minister for her show. Nicole.
Last word.
Yeah.
Uh, Irfanadi is currently on a live program
Mhm.
abusing the opposition leader and calling him all kinds of names. Also, he's attacking him on stealing the elections and all sorts of things, but he's not
Distraction.
answering the question.
Yeah,
He is
distraction.
not answering the question of where he got Sputnik from, how safe is Sputnik, what type of Sputnik they have, and the administration of Sputnik across the country to the Guyanese people. He's not telling them that. All he's doing is abusing. He's on that program, and like you said, distraction and abusing everything about what the opposition leader unearthed this afternoon during his press conference.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Nicole Telford, our APN UFC The Rush political correspondent, for bringing your views on that. I'll turn it over to the Chief Whip now for your one more thing, Chief Whip.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. I essentially will not waste any time with the individual that Nicole Telford mentioned, because we all know that is just a waste of space, so I wouldn't even go here. I just want to quickly reiterate the point that you made to the general public, that one, the leader of the opposition never said that the vaccine is fake. That is from the PPP.
Exactly.
The leader of the opposition has called for the batch as in a portion, not all of them. There is a portion which is called a batch that came from this sheik, that there should be a suspension of the issuance of those vaccine from that batch until you could ascertain the source that it came from. And of course, the point was made about the amount of money that we paid for it.
Yes.
There is a huge investigation across the globe which involved the very same sheik and the individual who's wanted by authorities about them and the selling of Sputnik vaccine in various countries.
Yes.
As I said before, again, Randy, the leader of the opposition, my colleague there, Annette Ferguson, and several other APNU, AFC members of parliament have taken the Sputnik-V vaccine, just like the thousands of Guyanese across this country.
Yeah.
So when you talk about genuine concern, they are concerned about their very lives.
Yes.
And that is why, because it is of such importance, you cannot expect the leader of the opposition to sit back and stay quiet and don't reveal the information that he hasn't had. At least the general public can say hereafter that Joseph Harmon said so, and he called for this investigation.
Yeah, definitely.
We had no other opportunity until 98 days after the parliament was convened to probe and ask those questions, as we did.
Yeah.
98 days with 491 questions that were left here. Thank you very much, Randy.
Thank you very much, Christopher Jones, opposition MP and Chief Whip, for joining us. Thank you very much, and Nicole Telford, our political correspondent, for joining the show today. I'm going to transition now to the former Minister, Honorable Annette Ferguson, MP, for her to take the next hour or so as we continue to unpack all of the happenings here in Guyana, folks. I want to thank you very much for being a part of the rush this afternoon. We continue to keep the PPP on their toes, this fraudulent administration on their toes. Let us say thank you very much to all the persons who joined. I know we didn't get a chance to have your say this afternoon, but trust me, tomorrow we're going to have an extended period where you get a chance to call in and share your views. Keep your questions, keep your comments, keep your thoughts. Let's tune in tomorrow for that. I, of course, will turn over now to Miss Annette Ferguson for her program as we continue our broadcast here this evening. Thank you very much. My name is Randolph Critchell. Let's continue to work for national development. We now start with Across the Waves with Miss Annette Ferguson.
With
A pleasant evening to you, wonderful viewers across the social media platform. Today is Thursday, the 17th day of June 2021, and I thank you very much for joining me for yet another program of Across the Waves, where I share with you issues or matters, whether at the national level, at the regional level, or also at the local level. So this evening, I would just like for you to encourage each and every one of your friends, families, or loved ones to tune in to Across the Waves. We've just concluded the APNU AFC live program where you had comments on issues, more so the Sputnik-V vaccine, all the revelations that we discovered during the past few days. My colleagues, Randolph Cuchello, Christopher Jones, and Madam Nicole Telford, they were able to give their commentaries regarding what was discovered. That being said, allow me this opportunity in another 3 or 2 minutes to express anniversary greetings to all celebrating, whether your birth anniversary, whether an addition to your family, or another milestone of your wedding bells, so to speak. So once again, happy anniversary to those of you celebrating. I also want to express my personal condolences publicly to one of my comrades, my brother, and also a friend in the political environment, and no other than former vice chairman of Region Number 10, Mr. Douglas Gittins. And I know many of you, I think it might have been in the month of May, to be exact, on the 13th of May, Comrade Gittins appeared for the first time on Across the Waves, where we shared together what were some of the issues affecting the people there in Region Number 10. I recall us having extensive discussion on the CEO of the hospital, one, and also the nurses who were on strike, and all the other issues, the awarding of contracts there in the region. So he really delivered from his heart. And to lose a young comrade, a brother, a friend, it is very hard for many of us in the more so the People's National Congress reform. So to my comrades there and friends in Region Number 10, once you've tuned in here, and also by extension, the People's National Congress reform, I personally would like to express my condolences to the mother and all the other relatives and friends of the late Douglas Gittins. And we all know by now what would have been the cause of death. The cause of death for Comrade Gittins is just few days ago. He would have taken his first jab, the Sputnik, I guess, vaccine. He would have taken his first jab of the vaccine, and was due for his second jab sometime later this month. And death has taken him. So once again, my condolences to his mother, relatives and friends, and also my comrades there in Region Number 10. May his soul rest in peace, and may he rise in glory. Amen. My brothers and sisters, friends of Across the Waves, this evening I will be joined shortly by a special guest. But in the meantime, allow me to update you on many of the issues that our nation is confronted with COVID is real, and I always like to start my program by focusing or zero in on what we're faced with in terms of our health situation in this country. So COVID is real, and we as responsible leaders, though the naysayers are saying something differently, that we had whisper campaigns across the region and also in our constituencies, saying to people not to take the vaccine. That is far from the truth. Um, we have seen to date 438 persons have died from COVID. And I always like to juxtapose these figures with what obtained under the APNU AFC government. When the People's Progressive Party Civic was installed on the 2nd of August 2020, the death figure for COVID was 21. 21 persons would have died between March and August 2020. And I also want to further remind you, viewers and listeners, that despite us, the APNUFC, not having a budget, a full 100% budget for 2020, because we were preparing for regional and general elections in March. So a budget for 2020 could not, we didn't do a budget for 2020 prior, but we said, when we get back into office, we would have had our 2020 budget done. But that being said, with the limited resources we had from 2019 budget, we were still able to contain and to manage COVID properly. Why am I saying this? We had measures such as staggered working hours. We had curfew implemented. We had the 6 to 6 curfew, which worked well for many communities, for many persons. We also had the whole measure on public transportation, where persons were not allowed to have 100% capacity of passengers on board, whether by way of road, sea, or air. So those were the stringent measures set out by the coalition government, because at the end of the day, we acted responsible due to the fact that we got lives to protect. We're already a small population. And we, as responsible leaders, we had to ensure that the death rate was contained, and that we were able to do. So if we've to fast track what is happening today, 438 is way too much. Way too much. And what we have been seeing is that this illegitimate bunch, they seem not to understand how to manage the COVID, how to utilize what they have, especially the technical staff who would have worked under the coalition government and was able to help policymakers to fight against this COVID disease. So what we found is that since the PPP came into office, every architecture structure we had in place, whether a plan as to how we gonna deal with the COVID, the different measures we had in place, we have seen the disbandment of those structures by the People's Progressive Party Civic. And I want to remind, because Guyanese, sometimes we tend to forget. And a little reminder is always good. A little history is always good, so that we can, reflect our thoughts and our minds and take ourselves back to what was really happening. During the whole elections saga, it was this installed bunch who said to this entire nation, because when COVID was discovered here, when we had our first case, and the task force was established, headed by former Minister of um, former minister, former Prime Minister, when he was head of the task force, and I can say we he extended an invitation to the then opposition to bring them on board so that we can fight COVID together. They said no. How we using COVID? One, as a hoax. Two, they had a better plan. They had a better plan to fight to fight COVID. But I can tell you this: they don't, because over 10 months now in office, we have seen the total mismanagement, the total, I don't know, mishandling of this whole pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been signaled that my guest is here. He's no stranger. I guess the name is familiar. He's none other than J.R. Crawford, a resident, a very vocal social media commentator, who resides in region number 6, East Berbice quarantine. A pleasant evening to you, Mr. J.R. Crawford, and welcome to Across the Waves. I am fine, thank you. And how are you?
Well, can't complain too much.
You can't complain too much. All right, just before you came in, I was actually, reminding my viewers and listeners on the whole COVID situation here in our nation. So I guess we can continue the
Yes.
discussion on that trend before we move to any other issues. So how has Region 6 been handling the whole COVID? Are you aware as to how many persons have been vaccinated thus far, and how are people responding to the vaccine?
Well, as far as vaccination total, um,
Mm-hmm,
Mr. Maipa asked Prime Minister Phillips
mm-hmm,
the count, and he didn't. He said he will get the count to, for us. As
mm-hmm,
far as the behavior, Region 6 seems not to. Many people seem not to care about COVID. They think it's a
mm-hmm,
laughing. They're going about their business as if nothing is happening, and
mm-hmm,
it's not until it hits home that they're starting to, take heed. Now, coupled with the Sputnik or whatever vaccine we have been having here, we do
mm-hmm,
not have data to know if it's something that's worth it or is causing more problems. And this is because of the secret backdoor, this current
mm-hmm,
administration is going through. With a national pandemic, I think all of the parties involved in parliament should be, at the table with this because it's a
mm-hmm.
national disaster. But for some
Yeah.
strange reason, there is vindictiveness where the coalition members are blatantly being pushed out or shut out from any input. And
Mm-hmm,
that's not the way to deal with a national disaster. Same
mm-hmm.
thing with the flood. These cats are operating like it's a one-man show, and that's not the way to go about it.
Mhm. Well, thank you very much, JR. You're absolutely correct. Consultation, us sitting together at the table, to find ways and means, strategies, how we can fight against this dreadful pandemic to save the lives of our people. We've seen that the opposition is getting that pushback from the installed regime. And I want to remind you, JR, and also our listeners. And I was making this point quite earlier before you came on, that when Guyana got its first COVID patient, the then government started to put systems in place. We established a task force where it was headed by the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Moses Nagamoto. You had ministries of public infrastructure, public health, um, the regions, they were all involved, and they had a spot on the task force. Even the leader of the then opposition was written to, asking him to identify, to send a nominee or nominees to sit on this task force, because experience would have taught us, from what we saw play out in China, what we saw play out in the United States of America, that persons were dying like fly. And though those countries got a bigger population, with our less than 1 million people, we really wanted to ensure that our people, the lives of our people, were safeguarded. So that is why we had everybody, invited everybody to come and sit, so that we can put our heads and shoulders to the wheel to come up with a strategy. But JR, they refused then.
They're not
They
going to
said
do it.
to God, they said to this nation that they had a plan. JR, where is their plan? Look, this is, not was, this is the APN. This is the coalition plans to fight COVID. This is our plan. So
Well,
all that would have, yes, JR.
now the coalition needs to start to engage the international communities that are sending monies towards the
Mm-hmm,
help of COVID and saying, look,
mm-hmm.
you don't have a plan. Here's the plan that we had formulated when this COVID hit. And these, we need to be a part of this because we have the plan. They don't. They cannot
Mm-hmm.
be collecting monies with the guise of treating the COVID situation when this is getting worse. So just like the international committees coming in last year and disrespecting our constitution and our country, they must come in
Yes,
and do the same pushy behavior as they were doing last year.
exactly.
If the opposition is not going to be heard or listened to in parliament, there's no need for the opposition to be in parliament because of the current administration with the majority, they are just going to bully their way, and the
Mm-hmm,
stupid followers are going to pay the price because the rich ones are going to afford medical coverage, and the poor followers are going to be left just like how they're stranded with the flood.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see a reason if you're not going to listen to the opposition, why would the opposition be sitting in parliament if everything they're saying is going to go out the window? These can
Well,
be held accountable, and all those foreign entities that were running off at the mouth during the election and the recount, they must be running their mouth now because it's a
mhm.
blatant disrespect of the people of this country to see what the party is doing. You have two natural disasters. You need all hands. Engage the opposition, as you're calling them now, even though you railroad them out of government, and have them work together as a collective entity. Look in New Forest. Every time the tide raises, the people are flooded. It's 17
Mhm,
homes. The PP ran have the majority of the votes there. No lights, no water, no internet. That is
mhm,
how they show a lot of care for the supporters. But unfortunately, the supporters have been clouding their judgment and their support based upon facial recognition and how the
mhm,
hair looks. And those are the days where you have to throw behind you now and start to think about progress. When the coalition was in power, once you
mhm.
approached, you had some comfort. Unfortunately, they didn't like it. And look what's going on. COVID is gone wild. Sudden rush of water all over the place. And look where the water is flooding.
All right, JR. Well, I got on my agenda. I have that as an issue for us to discuss. So we can now conclude on the whole COVID. So what you're saying to me? Well, even before I move off, can I ask a question?
Go
Can I
ahead.
pose this question to you? Have you taken your vaccine? Sorry.
I'm not crazy. They don't have enough information. I don't know what is in there, and I'm not going to be a guinea pig for nobody. I'm serious. I'm not going to do it.
All right. Okay. Well, we have on the, in the in the opposition, we have been encouraging persons to get
Here,
vaccinated, right?
here,
Because
now
pardon?
you here. The opposition was also touting the vaccine. Now you have a problem now where the vaccine could be tainted, could be something else in there. So what happens to the people that took it?
Well, I guess it's only them can answer, and I can tell you that I can tell
Unfortunately,
you this. Okay, I can tell you this, JR, is that I have taken the vaccine. I had both of my doses of that's the Sputnik V. And to be honest, I mean, we all are made up differently, body wise and so forth. So I know for a fact that some persons have been saying that, they had a little discomfort, perhaps, a little slight pain in the arms or somewhere else, right? While some said, they had like these drowsy feelings and stuff like that. But I can say publicly say this is that when I took my first dose, right, I had no major reactions or just a slight pain in the arm, and I guess it's right where the injection was actually administered. When I had my second dose, just the same pain that I felt from the first dose. That's the same feelings I had, but nothing to cause me, to become drowsy or in any other discomforting way. But I just want to end by saying this is that COVID is real, right? COVID is real. Vaccination is a personal decision, right?
right.
Vaccination is a personal decision.
I,
But
can I
what
ask
we
you
have
something?
been, yes, yes, yeah.
Um, Now, what is the prevention rate of this particular vaccine that we have in the Caribbean, in Guyana, more so?
Well, we have more than one vaccines in Guyana. We have the
When
Sinopharm, which came from China. We had the AstraZeneca and also the Sputnik V, right? But
all right,
what? Mhm.
wasn't AstraZeneca stopped from being used in Canada a couple of weeks ago?
Well, yes, I know not only in Canada, but I know there were certain countries in Europe that would
Why?
have put a cessation on the administration of the vaccines. I think
Why?
more so AstraZeneca because they were receiving complaints about clots and all manner of thing. So I guess after much research and work was done, and they were able to give the clearance for the administering of the vaccines to be continued.
Why can't an oil producing nation now afford a Pfizer or a Moderna for its people rather than go on proven cloudy, murky vaccines? Now you have COVID that has been touted of being started in China, and here you're going back with a Chinese vaccine. I don't.
well, well, to really answer your question, why, in an oil producing country, we know who is holding the purse at this time. That is the nation's treasury. It is the People's Progressive Party Civic. So I guess, these are questions we would have to publicly ask them. Why is it that they didn't, utilize some of the oil money to procure these much needed vaccine?
But
But
remember, we are members of other international organization,
mhm,
and
mhm,
they were pressuring the coalition to concede the election and all this great stuff. Now is the
mhm,
time for us, the collective unit, here and abroad, to put the pressure back on those very organizations to put up or shut up,
mhm, mhm.
because they were
Well,
part hijacking the democracy.
mhm,
Don't forget it.
mhm,
Now
yes.
you have and so how are we going to know what are we taking?
Mhm, mhm. As I said, JR, is that the government should have provided. I mean, I know for a fact that they have been, you know, they have been doing a lot of sensitization. So perhaps more, there is more, there's need for continuous public sensitization with regards to this, with regards to these vaccines. So I trust that, with what was discovered now by the opposition, I know for a fact that the government will try to spin to call us all kind of name, to call us, anti-vax, on all kind of name they're going to try to call us, because they have now been caught with their pants down. So
Right.
what is going to happen is that in the opposition, we have been doing our bit, and I guess you have been following many of the MPs on their social media, where we have been encouraging people and providing information. I know for a fact that we had my colleague, Dr. Karen Cummins, who is a doctor by profession. She too has been, provided much needed information to the general public. You also had Dr. Van West Charles. He too would have been providing information with regards to the vaccines, and the opposition in total. We have been doing our bit too. So what we may have to do now is to, put some additional pressure on those in authorities to have more sensitization done. Perhaps they need to have, probably regional meetings or community meetings would be the effective or better way to get our people more educated on the whole vaccination campaign. Yes, Jerry, wanted to say something?
One thing that before we move on, I'm still kind of
Mm-hmm.
puzzled if the
Mm-hmm.
coalition didn't make international friends during the 5-year tenure. I'm still puzzled because it seems that the
Well,
coalition is being treated as a football around a field. They're being kicked all
I
over the place, and there is no one coming to their rescue internationally. So, what had happened during the 5 years? Didn't we make any friends? Because what the people are doing, we're seeing is blatant, but yet none of the international organizations that we were supposed to be dealing with are coming forward. What is it?
Mhm. Well, Jer, what I can say to you and to our viewers and listeners here is that the opposition, we have been writing to many international organizations, expressing our dissatisfaction and also exposing the wrongdoings of the People's Progressive Party Civic. So it is not a case whereby the opposition or the previous government hasn't reached out to international allies. Yes, we have. But I guess, like many other countries, they probably see Ghana as sovereign, and they would know when to act and how to act. But if you have been following some of our publications online, um, we had actually, the National Assembly was out of session for 98 days. 98 days. The budget was passed on March the 4th,
All right.
2021. And since then, is when we went back to the National Assembly just last Thursday.
I know
And perhaps they buckled
because,
because they
because
came
of
under
the
pressure, because we wrote to
right.
CPA, we wrote to IPU, and to even CARICOM to highlight some of the infractions of this installed government. So they buckled to
Can I
pressure, so they
interject something
call,
before we go on?
yes, there.
Can I interject? See, yes, the younger MPs are doing a lot out there, and I commend you guys. One of the problems that I see, and I know a lot of people feel the same way, the former ministers of the coalition, the big
Mm-hmm.
shots ones, they're not there on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The message and the force is not out there. When you see the current administration start to manhandle the opposition, where are the big guns to come out there to meet the people to get organized. Because at the end of the day, I don't care which party rules the country as long the people of the country receive services and goods and be treated with respect.
Yeah.
Right? There will be an opposition, there will be a ruler, as long as they finally disappeared. And the younger MPs, the first-term MPs, are left to, try to fill a hole that's been dug by a Hymac with a shovel. And that's right. They should have been out there with you guys.
I hear
I mean,
you.
I am
you.
not looking for a government of people, and I'm angry with it.
I
mean,
hear you,
I
Miss.
don't have from anybody. They should have been out there, and they're still holding on to key positions within certain parties. If you cannot hit the road, get out and give somebody else an opportunity. Younger blood with different ideology. Look at where we start. We're dying because we don't have people with sense that are in proper position taking care of the sick. What's going on with all these people?
All right, RJR, I know I hear you, and I must say that the former ministers of government, they have been, doing their thing. They have been giving their support to us, the the MPs in the National Assembly and so forth. So no need to worry. They all are playing their role in different ways.
Just for your information, when my eye closes, the shop is shut on this bloodline. My kids are not Guyanese. I'm only doing this for the love of country.
I know we all are. We all are. We all
I don't
are.
have. I could shut up and stay in a corner, but to see things being done and the big shots are not there to back it up. There are people who are hungry. There are people who are not getting hampers. There are people who are not getting proper medical, and nobody's out there for them. I don't care if supporters or coalition supporters. We need to touch bases with these people, because if one Guyanese suffer, all Guyanese are suffering.
Good. But JR, I must let you know that the opposition, along with former ministers of government, we were in your region last weekend. I was in Region 6. I was at Sanford, both myself and former Minister Catherine Hughes. We were in Sanford. I had other colleagues were spread across the region. So we were there, and as I said before, we have our leaders who are, giving their support from behind the scenes.
They were there, but again, they're going about things the wrong way, and that's why people are getting upset. The coalition are going to lose votes, not to the PPP, but people are going to just stay home because they felt betrayed and left alone.
Okay, I hear you, Mr. JR. But at the end of the day, as a community leader in your region, and others, we have to play our role, and we have to reassure persons not to give up. This is just a cessation phase. We will be back, but we have been doing the work. That is why we have all these programs. You see, the mainstream media are not friendly to us. That is why MPs, along with Mark Benchcop, you got my colleagues in the rush and in the ring. We got Matthews, we got Camp Stevie. That's why we got these platforms, so that we can get our messages out.
You don't want me to touch on the mainstream media, so let's go on to the other topic.
All right, good. Yes, Mr. JR. So I know that the other issue I want us to touch on briefly, and we just got like 16 minutes before program time, right? The flood situation. Just many a day, over 3 weeks now, or more than 3 weeks, we have seen heavy rainfalls all across this nation in all the regions. So can you share with our viewers what has been happening there in Region Number 6 with regards to flooding? And how responsive has the illegitimate regime been to the region, to those affected in the region?
As far as response, they're not doing a proper job. Two, yes, we had a lot of rain, but this is not just rainwater. This
Mhm.
is thing is coming from the interior. So
Mhm.
obviously, this is coming from a different source. The
Mhm.
overflow, the creeks, and the savannas. So now we need to come clean with citizens. And again, the opposition should be engaged because again, it's a national disaster, and put the best heads together to get the people in a better situation. Water keep
Mhm.
rising, the rainfall has eased up, but the water level is still rising. So obviously
Mhm.
there is water coming from somewhere, but
Mhm.
nobody is saying anything. And I guess that's the way this the same business with the how the Sputnik is handled, the same way the flood is being handled in secrecy and mystery. And eventually you'll find out that it was something else other than natural rainfall. The the response to the situation with the people, health, nobody is putting forward a plan. Like you said, you had the COVID plan there last year and they didn't want to accept it. What happens to the infection with these stagnant water and fit outside toilet and all these things? Are they putting measures in place for these things? Are they treating the water so the citizens who has to walk through these water are not being infected? You know, these are things
Mhm.
they about. Now, as far as the getting the water receipt, go down to where the water is overflowing the banks, and you got to work from there and stop the water because we are below sea level, so we can't have a proper drainage out in the ocean.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
depends on tide. So we're going to be hurting. Nobody is coming forward with a plan. How are they going to reimburse or take care of the losses for the citizens?
Mhm.
Again, you need the opposition because this thing has to go through Parliament anyway. Where are you going to
Mhm.
extend monies to the people? You can't just leave the people that have lost so much without a backup. There are a lot. It's
Mhm.
going to first. And now that with the flood is going on, they are not doing a proper job in getting hampers to everyone. I've
Mhm.
received, and not to pinpoint thing, but several calls from PPP folks in PPP stronghold area asking me to contact the PPP MPs about getting food stuff because the food stuff is not going to every home. It's
Mhm.
friends and cronies.
Mhm.
Instead of stopping on a roadside and seeing people line up and go to every home
Mhm.
and drop it there. At least you guarantee you made a honest effort. It happens with the coalition to where some people will have trappers where other people will not have any. And this has been weird fixed again. We don't just I did a visit. We need to make sure that the citizens taken care of.
Mhm.
That's the reason why we seek caring for our citizens, not to look for self gratitude. And again, the opposition with a national disaster, I am totally surprised that, well, not really surprised, but I'm upset as the PPP has not engaged the coalition. Because, I mean, throwing back to when the coalition was in office, we had measures that, like you and everybody knew, that were keeping COVID to a minimum.
Mhm.
A person like Nia Sabat should be thanking the coalition for his life, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now we are seeing people just come out and engage his party of choice now as to listen, this I was extremely sick, and this is what the coalition was doing. Why not try this to save our citizens? He has
Mhm.
been
Mhm.
very silent on that. But his life was saved by this very coalition that he no longer wants to see.
Yes. But
And
but
the flood, the same thing with the
yeah.
flood. Need
Mhm.
we need people from both sides to work in because once one family is, all of us are hurt.
Good. But I hear you loud and clear, Mr. JR. From the time communities, regions came under flood waters, Kokwani was hard hit. And we saw how hampers were distributed in an unfair way to many communities because, the government is of the belief if there's a region 10, the 10 2 has been APNU, AFC. If you're from East Rumfeld or South Georgetown, you're being tainted. So you got green and yellow regions and red regions. So rather than the hampers and all the other reliefs are distributed in an equitable manner, it is not being done. It
Right,
is
that's
not being done.
important.
And I can tell you this, in your very region, you had residents, persons who worked at Gaisuku, persons who working at Gaisuku, they went public. This video went viral on social media, where somebody drop off bags of rice on the road shoulders, just rice, and the people were very vocal. Imagine me walking at Gaisuku, eh? Me walking at Gaisuku, and
Yeah,
they may even give me a packet of sugar. What packet of rice? A packet of rice is not just a hamper. So the people were right,
right.
and I
But
want to, and I want to. I just before you come in, or let me hold my point, and I'll have you respond. You need to
well,
come in here.
with those behaviors, it's a human
Hmm.
right violation, and it's blatant racism in the 21st century. And that's why, again, I'm wondering, when the coalition was in office, didn't they make friends with the international community? Because the government of the day should be reprimanded for such behavior, because it's blatant. You're treating some
Yes,
people like they're animals.
yeah,
And I do hope that some of the henchmen who are of doing realize that who do not agree
hello.
with the PPP logic, how they are treated.
Hmm.
I'm there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah, but 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 hear me out though. I hear you loud and clear, Gian. I hear you loud and clear. You keep asking, whether the coalition would have made friends with international allies and so forth. And I can only respond by saying yes. And even now we're in the opposition. We have been highlighting all these issues to international agencies. And JR, as we're on the flood, I can tell you this. I know I have first-hand experience where people in my constituency in South Georgetown, you had the Minister for Public Works went into that area, and they had their political activists working on the ground distributing chits, went to people's house, you understand me, and just distributed these chits for these people. One woman complained to me, her neighbor next door to her, on her way to the location to receive her hamper, she asked her neighbor who got a chit asked her, "You got a chit? You ain't heading to the location, to the site to receive your hamper?" The woman said, "I didn't get a chit." The woman said, "Yes, here is my chit. I just got a chit." So she left, and she left, went to the area without a chit, and still was able to get a hamper. But the point I am making here is the discriminatory way by this regime. We have
in,
5 minutes,
in
5 minutes to
Kanji,
program time. Mhm.
in Kanji, known coalition supporters, the people who are distributing hampers are just passing, driving by their houses. They won't stop.
Mhm.
Supporter called me and she said, they passed my house and didn't even stop, and I'm standing there. And they went to the next home because they
Wow.
know she's a coalition supporter. And
Yeah,
these
this
are,
is what.
it's very hard. And, you know, yes, you guys are hitting the ground, These are the videos that needs to go to the international community to show that blatant disrespect to coalition people. And I mean, it's more so in the African
Yeah.
origin.
Well, well, you
So
know,
the point is, do Black life matter to this government or not? Or are we third class citizen in this country?
well, you really want me to respond to that? You
Another
really
time.
want me to, because you know I'm a very frank
Yes, I
speaker,
know.
right? Good. But before we bring the program to a closure, I want to share with you, um, and I guess you know we can pick this up part two come next week. But briefly, I want to share with you and our listeners and viewers. Just Monday, a matter of fact, on Thursday when we met as a National Assembly. We had two papers were brought to the were tabled. Financial paper one, right, which is 1,906 whatever, and then we got another financial paper two, which is 23 billion plus dollars approved by the National Assembly. So I think this is what they did because financial paper two there is an allocation, and I guess you, like many of our viewers, would have heard the installed Vice President touting that they will be heading to the National Assembly seeking a 10 billion approval for flood relief. But when they came to the National Assembly, when the paper was laid, it wasn't only the 10 billion for the flood relief. It was an additional 10 billion plus, you understand me, which brings it up now to 21 billion and change they came asking for. And what struck me, if you look, the first item on this paper here, it is the $10 billion. And this is what the remarks column says. Provision for flood relief interventions, including repairs to infrastructure and supporting recovery in in the productive and household sectors. So this is through the office of the Prime Minister, and some of these monies will go to CDC. So when we ask the hardcore question from this $10 billion, one, we ask whether each household will get a cash grant. They said no. The Prime Minister said no. We asked, the other question that was asked, can you say from this 10 billion, how much going to the various regions? How much will go to region 1? How much going to region 2 and straight to region 10? My brother, friends, and across the wave here, you know what the Prime Minister said, the installed Prime Minister said? Oh, he cannot say how much going to the various regions because they're still doing assessments of infrastructure. They're still doing assessments in this area and that area. Then how come you arrived at the 10 billion? We further asked, the opposition further asked whether there will be fairness in the distribution because he said, the installed Prime Minister said that this money will be primarily used for infrastructure and for hampers to be delivered to household. And so far, they would have distributed, I think, about 30, they would have distributed, I'm trying to get a figure, if it's in excess of 25,000 hampers, if my memory serves me accurate. But yet, whether they would have distributed that amount, we would have seen the disparities in the distribution exercise where coalition supporters did not receive. And we asked, we put the Prime Minister and his team on spot that we hope that from this $10 billion, persons, individuals will not be treated in the first set of distribution. So he said no. Because we, the leader of the opposition and my other colleagues said that based on our assessments in various communities and regions, persons are yet to receive hampers. And he said to us, get them the list. Well, the leader has given that undertaking to ensure that a list is compiled and submitted to them. So we will be watching them closely with regards to this 10 billion Guyana dollars. Would you like to say anything on this?
Well, time wouldn't permit me to say as
I
much as
know,
I.
I know. Well, what I would,
That,
what I would, what, mhm. what I
that
would
10
want to,
billion, that's a
pardon?
blatant that's a blatant disrespect to the people. You're telling me with all these people that have been affected, only 25,000 hampers? These guys are doing things day by day, and they're pilfering the treasury. That's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
heard him say that he's going to come back when Mr. Mahipal questioned him. They might come back for more money than the 10 billion.
Yes,
So
yes.
they're doing experiment. So these assessments that they are so-called using is guesstimates.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
Mm-hmm.
they're, they're shoving mud down the ordinary man's throat with these numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well,
They're gonna
JR,
end up with about 40 billion.
yeah. Well, JR, I think this. I sorry that I have to cut you because we're now preparing for another program in
It's all
Duray. But what I would want to, I want to give you advance notice that you will return on this program across the waves next week Thursday, where we can, have some further elucidation on financial papers 1 and 2, because I must let you know also that in financial paper 2, there is also an additional $1.5 billion going towards Gaisuku. So next week we will touch on Gaisuku and what is happening there with all the promises they made with regards to the reopening of the estates there in region number 6. So JR, I can you take 30 seconds to give your final comment on this program?
Look, I am totally upset of the way the current administration is handling the COVID and the flooding. And
Mm-hmm.
it seemed, I mean, one video showed that the acting president there was walking
Mm-hmm.
away from questions,
Mm-hmm.
and and their supporters were left flabbergasted as to why and what behavior. There are other reports of some, you know, disrespectful remarks that were made in the coalition stronghold when the caretaker was there, and
Mm-hmm.
we can have that. I mean, if you're going into a disaster, you must lend an ear because you're chosen by the people to be their servant. But for some strange reason in Guyana, the ministers and the president and so on are kings. And the sooner
Mm-hmm.
or people realize that they are being disrespected by these folks, they must vote for progress over race. And what has
Mm-hmm.
happened to people here across the country is sickening. And it seems that the current administration is not a caring administration, it's a subservient administration. That's my
Mm-hmm.
take.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, Mr. JR, thank you very much for joining us here on Across the Waves program for today, Thursday, the 17th day of June 2021. I do look forward to you rejoining me next week so that we can continue this discussion on what is happening in region number 6 and also other issues at the national level. Ladies and gentlemen, this is
Right.
all the time we have here on Across the Waves. I just want to encourage you, JR, and all tuned in to be safe. COVID is real. Please ensure that you mask up, you maintain your social distance, and also you washed your hands. With those few words being said, do have a blessed weekend, Mr. JR and team. And may God bless you. May God bless your family. May God bless our nation. And once again, thank you for joining me here on Across the Waves. Good night.
Good night, everyone.